today, and I'm happy to open this section of special lectures. We have two speakers, Professor Jacques Billiet from Universite catholique de Louvain and Francesca Saracina. Everyone knows. So both speakers will have for 30 minutes each, and also 15 minutes for Q&A part. And without further ado, so I give the floor to Professor Jacques Billiet. So please. So take my
Okay. Good afternoon, and I would like to thank the people from this institute for the invitation. It was very nice to come here. Just before Tim is here,
yeah.
He said me that I have too much slides for 30 minutes.
Only 36.
I think so. But I can skip. I have already skipped a number, and be sure I put my presentation in PDF on the web of this institute, and also refer to some papers to it. It's a long title, but I explain it to start with. Methodological problems. It's about a shift in my life since 5 years. When I became 70, then I became more and more interested in concepts and assumptions and the theory behind statistics. So it's about, I name it, conceptual validity instead of measurement validity. I am, in fact, a statistical person doing empirical research, but the last time I do work on that. It's about on quantitative comparative results, and I will speak about designs, 4 main designs and subtypes. It was difficult. I changed it all last summer because you can use more dimensions than 2, 4, but then it becomes confusing. The focus will be on cross-country today, and it's all about hierarchical data. This means micro-level and high-level data and problems with this. Apply to survey results, because there are other kinds of cross-cultural and survey analysis. So the aim is to give some considerations for improving conceptual validity, mainly conceptual validity, that is the focus, and this means ideas and questions, more questions than answers, questions and considerations about the first step of operationalization, the step of theory, concepts, and not as much the measurement validity. This is the technical step, the operationalization is the second step of research. And the idea behind is the following. Conceptual validity is often underappreciated in empirical studies. It is related to low explanatory power in hierarchical models, and even to invalid inferences. But it is also related to measurement issues. I think if you have good concepts, that's already one step in advance in order to deal your statistical problems, as we have seen just before in the discussion. There was 2 examples of this idea. That is the outline. First is about concepts, classifications and designs. And I give a short overview of the designs. A second part is a typical example of a stepping stone. And there I will apply the questions that I have raised during this discussion about the designs. Then the third step is a number of validity considerations and questions you have to ask when you are setting up research. Sometimes I suggest answers, but it's more important to raise the good questions before you start. And they are, in this case, related to the stepping stone example, and then I come to a main conclusion. In fact, it's just one conclusion, but I divide it in 3 steps. Here are some papers. The first one that I started this direction in my work. The others are all, you see, titles are dark, so it's all on methodological problems and conceptual problems. And the last one is in the handbook of survey results. There I did something on what does measurement mean in survey context, and there I explain the difference between conceptual validity and measurement validity. You can have, I have already told you the PowerPoint, but if you want some of these papers, you just mail to me. The mail is on the first page, and I send you a copy. So this means that I already can stop now. So concepts, clarifications, and designs. There are 6 criteria for making classifications in studies with 2 levels. Namely, the level of the data, that's simply global data, microdata, or territorial data. I use the term territorial because these ideas were discussed already at the end of the 60s and in the 50s, and then they use territorial, but it's higher data, can be. But I apply to countries because of the results of DAS, it's only involved in ESS. The second is origin of the data. That are concepts that are important, are direct measurements of primary measurements or indirect. And indirect means that you have a measurement of a low level and give it to the higher level. And there you have an upward indirect measure, and that's important to conceptualize this before you start. Oh, sorry. Then the purpose of the data is propositional or descriptive. That's clear. The level of the dependent variable, outcome variable. There I had difficulties to classify my designs because you have always predictors and outcomes, and both can be different. So let it at the moment. The level of the dependent variable, that does not completely sufficient. I struggled with this 2 days ago, but that's it. Then the nature of a high level unit, that's an important distinction. In the past, they used package variables. They use dummies for the countries. And without any differentiation, and they look for the effect of a country as a whole. Yeah, sure, you cannot distinguish what it is. We had even this in past discussion. And the more modern ways to do it is multi-level analysis, regression, and there we use countries as sets. We use sets of variables. That's a completely other situation. And then the focus of analysis is on one level or on more than one level. So these are the concept. Most relevant combinations is level of units by origin. So we have already seen it. The most common practice these days, context data measured by aggregation of micro-information, that's in surveys. You have indirect measures and official statistics. Are official statistics also derived measures? I'm not sure, because they come from counting people. I don't think so. You have upward measurement and downward measurement. Downward means from the high level to the lower, or the opposite. And we should be very careful with measurement means, aggregation of means, because some recent results, models from that it can be biased when you do this. Okay. Purpose of analysis by nature of society. That's what we just said. Nature of the country, an historical unit, and a package variable, and it makes much difference. When there are package variables, there is no specification of specific effects, and that was the common design in the past. That level of dependent outcome variable by focus of analysis, it can be individual or territorial, and the focus is of the number of levels, one or more. Okay, now I show you a figure, and I use there only 2, And within each cell we have a third division. And we will focus on the right part. It's still the right part, yeah. For everybody, for me also. Is type 3, that's the most used, I think. And there is a difference between type 2 and type 3 and type 4. These are all combined 2 levels. But in type 3, you focus only on higher level. You try to explain higher level outcomes by higher level predictors, but the measurement of these higher levels can be derived, and that's a very important idea, from individual data. We will say something more on that in a while, and there can also be interactions, but that's not in my classification. And the type 3 results is individual level data, jointly used with contextual data of territorial units. Okay? And you can also have interactions. I haven't in that one. But I think it's good to differentiate when you start doing results. Because designs rely on research questions, on theoretical expectations, on the available data, but also about assumptions about measures and relations. And since 5 years, I'm very attentive when I'm reading papers for reviews. Do they really specify the assumptions behind their choice of variables at the higher level? It's crucial to make background assumptions explicit. That's one of the ideas of probabilism. Particularly design 4, when you use analysis at the higher level, and that idea is based on, you have discussed it, methodological individualism. So it's very strong school in sociology. It's very prominent in the Netherlands. We will discuss, well, we see is it always this, but the ideas that come in the next 3 slides are derived from this background. I do not use it for me, but I know it from literature. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this going on. Yeah. Okay. So, that's the idea behind, maybe you know it. That's the so-called bat-tube diagram. And the ideas about assumptions and so on are from this idea. It's the basic ideas of methodological individualism is that society is constituted by the interaction between individuals, but cannot be reduced to it. Cool. And this is formalized in this bat-tube. And I'll ask a question on that in a while. The diagram clarifies the bridge assumptions and the transformation rules, bridge assumptions that make this bridge between these measurements at the high level and the lower level, and the assumptions about the measurement. What does it mean when you aggregate a mean, or when you take a percentage, but you have many possibilities to measure this. But is micro foundation of macro relations always necessary? That's the question. Kuhlmann, no, the individual methodological individualist would say yes, it is. And I'm not sure, but I know it depends on the theoretical meaning of these relations between variables or constructs. We do not go into that. And it is required when macro variables refer to forms of social action, to social or collective choices, to social movements, and in particular when derived measures of macro variables are aggregated. Then it's really needed to specify these assumptions. And why is it necessary? Because designs have consequences for validity of the operations, and that's the analysis and statistical part, for the validity of the inferences based on this concept, and validity of the conclusions. And that's a hint. I will give you some rules. A hint, always start to identify a design, and the previous parts are means to help you to specify a design. I do it always when I read the paper. Show the concepts and relations in a graph. That's also useful. And discuss with team members in early stages, because you can really be wrong in making a graph. And after discussion, I have seen one just before, but then you can clarify for yourself. I have two examples, and you can read them. I skipped this one. That's an example with an interaction of real results. That's an interaction here. So. No, with a mediation. It's not a moderation here. And that's an example with an interaction. And then the whole question we have discussed before with us. And I have now an additional consideration about time, because at a certain moment, time is also involved in results. And that is a specific element. Because there are three possibilities to include time. And at that moment, we start with the idea of causality. I have a statement on causality also. We have weak designs, and weak designs is when you have one point in time and you have only retrospective questions about the past. I have a study on that, on the effect of the economic crisis in terms of on ethnocentrism, and that was ESS 2010, but there we had no longitudinal data, and we used retrospective questions about situation 3 years ago. But I'm using it, that's a weak design for having conclusions, because it's subjective, the interpretation of the past, that's clear. But then we have strong designs, but that's where you have panel data at both levels, the individual and the country level. Because the interesting point is, and that's important for models, at the country level, you have always panel data. Under certain conditions, because you have the same countries, and that makes it very interesting to do analysis with changes over time if you realize that you have panel data for that part, given that the measurements are valid. We come to that. I have an example of this also, publication of recent time. There, growth curve models are used to specify the longitudinal effects of time on this cross-level results. Think all about alternatives for multi-level regression. We fastly go to regression because it's such an easy to use instrument, and we have done multi-level models. But there are other ways to work with data over time and over countries. Namely, multi-group sum structural equation modeling is a very interesting technique, using at the same time and testing your measurement model and your relations structural model. Or I have recently read something about latent variables at the group level. It's also interesting. There you have latent variable at the individual level and a latent variable at the group level. And there you have the specific these assumptions or of connecting the levels of analysis. Then I give a typical example. That is somewhat difficult. I had several, that's a rather difficult one, but it gives some nice problems. I will go fast over the very easy part, and then I stop a little minute to explain some things that illustrate what I have said before. Designs, they are used often because of the plenty amount of microdata over time and between countries. That makes this mostly cross-sectional. And here I have a statement on causality, because if you have no panel data, then you cannot have really causal conclusion. You can even say if you have panel data, or whether you can. My idea about causality is its causal effect is likely. You can never prove, because causality is a theoretical concept. And you can say, I cannot reject the causality. When students have problems with some members of the jury that they have used causality, then I say, it's likely that it's causal, and I cannot reject that it's not causality. And that fits with my idea about scientific results. You can only reject things, not prove. And very fundamental when you use causal data, or so-called causal data in analysis, statistical analysis, is the idea of counterfactuals. It was also discussed some minute, 1 hour ago, that it's important. It's very important to complete your statistical analysis. You never can prove something causal, but you have help with counterfactual data because you have a small number of units at the market. So that's a suggestion. There are nice articles about that, about criteria for good counterfactual. My example is based on design 3. The study is individual values, cultural embeddedness, and anti-immigrant sentiments of my good friends and colleagues, Elda Davidov, Bart Meuleman, Norbert Schwarz, and Peter Schmidt, who is one. And I go first on the more simple things, and then I work on one example that very good illustrates what I want to say. You have micro variables from ESS, and you have macro context variables. You have direct measures based on official statistics of ESS 2008, and you have direct measures aggregate from micro measures. And in this sample, and that's also a possibility, the derived measures are not from the same surveys you have from 2008, but they come from another survey of 2 years earlier, even not from ESS, and even not done by a sample of people from the populations. But it's very well explained why. But that's an argumentation. You can think about that. Is it correct to do that? The study is based on theory and theoretical expectations. It uses a very nice term you will see at the macro level. And that is the stepping stone we will use. I now go fast over the very easy questions. What value orientations affect attitudes towards immigrants? And there are the hypotheses, that's known. Universalism and tolerance have an effect on ethnic threat. Okay. Very fast. Conformity tradition has just the opposite effect on this. What is the effect of country characteristics on the acceptance of immigrants? First of all, we have the always used GDP, or as a measure of something that is explained what? Yeah. That's because you have the data easily. And then we have there's the hypothesis about that, we know. And then you have a very nice, interesting concept, embeddedness. And embeddedness is really a sociological concept of societies that are cultural integrated, the opposite of what we have seen in the lecture of Louvain. And we have spoken about in disintegrated society. Embeddedness, but the interesting thing is that embeddedness is measured by individual data, not by attitudes of the people in the ESS samples, but by attitudes of teachers in schools, samples of teachers of 2 years earlier, so 2006 instead of 2009. And the question is this acceptable? Well, that's not my question. The point is, do they defend this practice? And yes, they give arguments, and that's important that you give arguments why these are valid measurements of this. Even they say in the study, these teachers are eminent proxy units for the society because they transmit the values and so on. So you can discuss, that's not the point, but you should really point this problem. And then that's then the hypothesis of this embeddedness. We can skip that. And then so also how is the relation between value orientation affected by the relative size of immigrant population? That's again a classic point. Now there are coming new ideas on that, but that's a cross-level interaction. And then that's an interaction hypothesis. And there are even 3 interactions in this study. Now, don't fall over your seat. If you try to make a graph of this, then you have this. So, Yeah, but it's good to do it. Then you see what happens. So you have all direct effects of the country level variables, embeddedness and immigrant population directly on allow immigrants, and then you have these values, and then you have the control variables to make the populations comparable. And these are the interactions. An interaction from immigrant to this conformity tradition, and then two interactions. Yeah, okay. And now what I have to do. Yeah. Validity considerations in this example. Okay? Mm-hmm. No, what am I doing? I will not tell much. I only deal with the first. I have in the papers I refer to, I have all these ideas. Mixed measures are and derived in the context level, large theoretical distance, weak theory at context level, small n, blind spots in the analysis, problematic source of influences, and complete overview. See this first paper. Then you find it all. So I can go fast now. But why is mixed measures a problem? Well, that's because I had always the idea before, if you use macro variables, you should measure it at that level. Well, I'm not longer sure on that. I would say it's not necessary. And in practice, everybody uses derived measures. And everybody uses what I call double measurements. They use the individual opinions at the individual level for variables at the macro level. Mm-hmm. Is this acceptable? Yes, I say. Since then, before I said not acceptable. I find really fundamental macro variables. That's not possible. It's at certain conditions. Mm-hmm. And what are the conditions? That's an important part now. What are the conditions for doing this double measurement? So, well, we have. I give again the example of just before that, because the example of embeddedness is an example of that. Yeah. So that's my point. However, what to do if these are not available? It's acceptable to do that. That is measurement. Here are my concepts. You can derive them by aggregation. You can derive them by aggregation. You take them from other servers, you take them from the same server, and then you have double measurement. Is this acceptable? Well, W, I think yes, under conditions. What are the conditions? The constructs at a higher level have a clear and different theoretical meaning than the micro measures. Well, you can in fact, you can all discuss. I'm not sure about all, but that are the ideas we have to say. Secondly, the specific meaning, that is the conceptual validity, at what level must be argued. You should give arguments why it is a different variable. Here you are doing something with theory. The operations with indicators and constructs should be statistically valid at both levels, at the level of the individual data and at the higher level. The cross-level transformation rules of measures are adequate. So that's the Kuhlmann diagram. Transformation rules should be explained, and also the bridge assumptions. What does it really measure, this macro variable based on this micro data? And note that comes not from my stepstone example. I had another one where it is. They do not really use W's. It's not present there. Because they measured the lower level in a sample of 2 years ago, and they use the macro variable thing, so that, but it brings me on the okay, yeah. And then considerations. The previous were conditions. Now we have considerations. Does the sample reflect population distribution? There you have the problem of non-response bias. Well, what I was doing before, during 10 or 15 years. If you compare countries, I see. Then you have what are the implications of measurement error? Are robust based on aggregate statistics of outcome variables biased? That's the reference of Krohn, who really say if you use aggregate means as outcome, design for, then it's biased, and he shows it, and I've seen other publications. So are the measures, and that's what I also did for 15 years, equivalent, are they really equivalently measured? That's a statistical problem, but you need it also if you do that. Now they do it on both levels, this latent variables. Are upward measured variables needed for statistical reasons? That's what is defended by many people who use all their individual measured variables, make them all variables at the macro level. They say it is needed. Sometimes you can think, when you think about income for a country and income for the individuals, have really a relation between both, because income is subjective, and you refer to the country. So there it's certainly a case where it is needed, but maybe there are other situations. And the acceptability depends on the conditions and the questions answered by these. Example of valid bridge assumptions. I take this for my example. Why is the bridge assumption, and I'm trying to conclude and I skip one part. It's really said in this study, opinions are seen as collective representation. Individuals acquire knowledge through collective debates. Cultural context shapes frame of reference to which perceptions are related. Aggregate data is an indication of dominant ideas, and we can really use it in previous examples. And there we have our school teachers again. And then I have another consideration. It's the distance between the levels is sometimes a problem, but I skip that and I come to my conclusion. Can I say my conclusion?
Yes, yes,
please. It's very clear. I had 10 conclusions, I skipped them all. Because in fact we have one general conclusion in 3 parts. Oh, sorry, it's badly done. That was during the previous lecture that I tried to make something. That's the main idea. Technical statistical validity is not sufficient condition for theoretical validity. And some people likely start with models, with statistics, with visual models, and with what they have learned in their statistical courses. Oh, that's a pity. They forget to think and think about concepts. Invest more in serious reflections on operationalization of concepts, designs, bridge assumptions, and transformation rules in the operationalization stage before designing statistical methods. So, in that stage. And then you start with, it will be very useful, you will see. This will contribute to both theoretical validity and measurement validity. And also validity will win by that, if you have time to think about theories and concepts. And ask always questions about concepts and assumptions to your design, and make this explicit. Thanks, that's what I want to say.
Thank you so much. And we have some time for questions, and I see Edward wants to ask the first question.
Yes, thank you very much. It was interesting, but very fast. I have a question as to why the theoretical meaning of the micro variable has to be different from the theoretical meaning of the derived aggregate level variable. For instance, I've been thinking about my own research. There's individual level religiosity that affects gender norms, for instance, and there is aggregate level religiosity that may affect your gender norms, even if you are not religious yourself, but if this is a very religious country that enforces certain gender norms, you'll be affected. Is this theoretically different enough? Or what do you exactly mean by theoretical difference?
Okay, thank you for your question. First of all, I am always fast, and I should say some people to say, so but then I couldn't do it in 30 minutes. But I have the slides, so you can read it. Secondly, I skipped this example of religion. It's certainly an example why we can't use this double measurement. But it means something else. At society level, it is the religious climate, the cultural climate that you are measuring. And this term climate should play a role in a combination of macro variables. And therefore it has a different meaning in this context, while individual biology can have many meanings. What indicators do we use for religious involvement is one of my issues. In ESS is practice, church practice, subjective belief, self-definition of religiosity, and they form one latent variable. But the meaning for the persons and in the theory, it's something else. You bring it in contact with other variables than you do at the country level. Namely, what are the predictors of religiosity? Education, age, and you bring it as an explanatory variable, for example, for ethnocentrism and so on. So the idea that the relations between variables at the macro level are a different context than the relations at the micro level, and for me, that's the reason why I say it should have a different meaning. But you can apply it for embeddedness. Embeddedness is measured, I'm not sure, I have to look at this, by items as the importance of society, of norms and rules and so on, at the individual level. And the integration of society at the macro level, I read something, I can't say much because it was in the review, so I cannot say it. It's something else than the meaning of this. But the point is, I say it in advance, I say, I am not sure about all what I say, so it's possible. More important is that you ask a question about that, not that you agree with the answer. And that's an important question, and we use it. Okay. I hope. Okay.
Chris? Yeah, exactly on the same issue. As you know, I have been a proponent of including the same variable, say attitude, at both the individual and the aggregate level at the same time. I think for very good reasons. For me, this question is very easy because by definition, it has a different meaning at the two levels. At the individual level, it always measures if the individual herself carries that characteristic, yes or no, or to what extent. At the aggregate level, it measures something completely different. How prevalent is that characteristic in the embedding society? Here, however, the tricky thing is you have to think about when you say climate, for instance, which is a metaphor which I like, you're thinking in terms of prevalence patterns. So then you would go for a measure of central tendency. But then again, I think scholars are sometimes not creative enough, because sometimes it would make sense to calculate a geometric mean, maybe, between or instead of the arithmetic mean. But sometimes you might have an idea about dispersion, or how disparate, how polarized is a society, in which case the aggregate measure should not be a measure of central tendency, but some measure of dispersion, whether it's the standard deviation, coefficient of variance, or what else you could use. And I also think, and that I think is important, when I do this, I would always country mean center the individual level measure in order to get all between country variation out of that component, because I have it already when I include it at the country level. But I do think these are...
That's a very nice illustration of what I propose to say, that this conceptual part has implications for your statistical decisions. And when I hear you, you have considered that and you reflect upon this. But I read many research projects where they just use this aggregate variables to have them, without any reflection about the meaning. And my point is not, is it correct or not? My point is, reflect on this and make it explicit in your research proposals and even in your papers.
Go on.
You asked about, is it legitimate to use the school teacher's measure of embeddedness as an indicator of a national attribute? I think it's an interesting question, and I've actually tried it, although not with embeddedness. But on one hand, I think it's an argument that the school teachers' views are representative of society because they shape the society, which I think is extremely dubious. I think the influence of school teachers is somewhat modest. However, they may be nevertheless a valid measure if they reflect the views of their society. Now, at first glance, obviously they don't, because school teachers are more educated than the society as a whole. But if they vary from the societal mean, roughly in the same direction, and roughly by the same amount, then they might very well be a valid indicator of the relative position of their societies. And when you do that, I actually find that Shalom Schwartz's measures of school teachers' views or of students' views, which are clearly not representative of their society directly, their level is different, but their relative position is the same. And as a result, you find remarkably strong correlations between the country's relative positions as measured by that, and the country's relative positions as measured by genuine representative national surveys. So if, of course, this is the crucial assumption, if the students vary in the same direction and roughly the same amount, then they are a valid representation of the relative position of their society.
That's a good suggestion to Schwartz and his colleagues and to my friends. You can test it even. That's not what you propose, eh?
I have tested it.
You have tested it, okay.
And we find very strong correlation.
So you can.
Yeah.
And
I would
I'm
say,
sure that this was the argument of Peter Smith and so on.
no, I think it's not. It is not their argument.
I have not found it, but they give the first argument, namely that they have a position where they transmit values and so on, and that is it. Not a test.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's interesting to do it.
But they don't dominate the values of the society, but they reflect it.
That's the most important point I want to say. You have to reflect on what you are doing. And computers do not reflect.
Not yet. Next month.
You can get medical doctors who are not the social scientists.
And in the month after that, they'll do it better than we do.
Okay. Then you do not do that.
Another question, please. May I ask a conceptual question? It's not a technical question. How do you define religiosity?
How do you define?
How do you define religiosity?
Originally, I am a sociologist of religion, and I will not say that I'm not with. There are very big discussions about what religiosity is. I mostly do not use the name religiosity. We have no measures for religiosity. You have it individual, you have it macro. I speak always, and that's easy for these European countries, about church involvement, or involvement into churches, and the Protestant churches and the Catholic churches. That's the definition. And then we have the classic dimension, you have a practical dimension, the behavioral dimension, you have a subjective dimension, and so on. You have several dimensions, and that's a complete construct of religiosity. And then this should be equivalent of Congress, and a very nice example of an error that statistical this one, that you find in ESS, we have published on that too, the opposite relation in the Muslim countries and the Catholic countries with gender and involvement into religion or church. Mm-hmm. That's natural because the measures are not equivalent, because one of the questions is going practice, regularly practice to services, and the point is women should not do that, they can, and men should do it. That are the implications of your definition of religiosity.
But actually, I disagree with this definition.
What?
I disagree with your definition.
Why don't you see?
Because in my view, religiosity is the attitudes and tendency of the people to apply religion in collective life, in state affairs, in making laws.
Yeah, but that's
because
the definition of the higher level.
What you said is faulty, because my involvement in church or any religion doesn't affect the society, collective life. So it doesn't matter actually. What matters is that if I want to apply my religious belief in collective life,
it's a very nice
collective life or state affairs, This is the problem.
It's a very nice example that has been related, that is related to homosexuality, to marriage of the same gender and so on, and many other things. In Belgium, it was a Catholic country until the end of the 90s, and then there was a crisis to do with, not with religion and so, and the Christian Democrats went out of the power. And then come for the first time a government with socialists and liberals, and at that moment they changed all the rules. And Belgium became one of the most progressive countries, even more than the Netherlands. Then I would say religiosity is at the level of society, whatever the people are doing, the moment that change was there. That's the discussion of one of the papers before that.
Do we have any other questions? Yes, please, Anna.
Thank you very much for the lecture. I have one question. In the papers that you review, would you say that over the over years, are there like more papers that take care of this conceptual argument before they go straight to modeling, or less, or is it just the constant mistake that we make?
No, but there are many, but I have the impression that it changed. And the paper of just before is one of the examples where they do it. But there are more and more. I read them really focused and say, well, they use material analysis. Where are the links and where do they explain them? And in last time, I see that I can give more examples where they really explain them. And when they do not, I ask them to do that. But I think it's important to do.
If we don't have any other questions, so let's thank